সবার চিল্লাচিল্লি আর কোথাও যাওয়ার কোনো সুযোগ পাইনি। অন্ধকার হয়ে যাওয়ার পরে শরীরের উপর কি যেন ওটা পড়ে ওইটার মানে চাপে আমার মেরুদণ্ড ভেঙে যায়, মেরুদণ্ডের 4টে হাড্ডি ভেঙে যায়। এরপরে 3 দিন পরে আমি ওই জায়গা থেকে উদ্ধার হই।
শাস্তি চায় না এমন কোনো শ্রমিক নাই, মা হারাইছে, সন্তান হারাইছে, আমিও নিজেও হারাই যেতে পারতাম।
A survivor of the Rana Plaza collapse cleans a memorial to the more than 1,100 people who lost their lives there. Mohammed Kabir Mullah was trapped for 4 days and nights when the building with garment factories, shops and apartments crumbled in 2013. It was the deadliest accidental structural collapse in history. Mohammed was one of the lucky ones. A few meters away, just in front of where the building once hummed with thousands of sewing machines, a portrait of a woman who died beneath the rubble hangs in her husband's shop. 4 years on, survivors like Hajera Begum bear the lingering physical and psychological scars.
বিছনায় তো ঘুমানি, এই যে কয়দিন ঘুমানি ফেননি কে এই রাত নিবেন প্রথমে দোতলা উঠতে পারি না, ওই যে দোতলা 3তলা 4তলা উঠা পারি না, যাই না, ডর করে, ডরাই। আবার এই আন্ধারে যদি কারেন্ট চলে যায় ঘরে থাকতে পারি না, আন্ধারে থাকতে পারি না।
A day before the collapse, cracks appeared in the building, but the owner assured everyone it was safe, and the garment factories ordered Hajera and the other workers to go inside.
7:30টার দিকে গেছি, এনে সবাইতে উঠে না, কেউ বইতে উঠে না, এনে সবার বাজান কয় কি তোরা যদি না উঠোস তো বেতন দিম না আর নাটে দে বাইরেম।
তো মনে করেন সবাই পেটের দায়ে চাকরি করে, গরিব মানুষ, তো বেতন না দিলে তো ওনাদের সংসার চলবে না বা আমারও সংসার চলবে না। যে মিথ্যা কথা বলছে যে সমস্ত শ্রমিকই তার বিরুদ্ধে শাস্তি চায় না এমন কোনো লোক নাই।
46 people have been charged in relation to the collapse, which was blamed on substandard construction materials and the building's conversion from commercial to industrial use, among others. But no one has yet been convicted.
This is where Rana Plaza stood until April 24, 2013. It was initially designed as a 4-story commercial building housing offices and shops, and never designed for factories with heavy machinery and vibrations. Another 4 stories were added to the building without permits.
Western clothing companies donated to a $30 million trust fund administered by the International Labour Organization to boost the meager compensation the Bangladesh government provided to the victims' families and survivors. Local development agency BRAC has contributed to the fund. It is also helping hundreds of survivors to get medical treatment and counseling and develop new livelihoods with funding from Walmart and the ILO. Mohammed Ripon Mia, who broke his back in the Rana Plaza collapse, is one of the beneficiaries.
এর পরবর্তীতে আমাকে ব্র্যাক 1 লাখ টাকা ডিপোজিট করে দেয় ওখানে 5 বছরের জন্য, আর এই দোকানের জন্য 31,200 টাকার মাল কিনে দেয়। ওইটা দিয়ে আমি প্রথম শুরু করি দোকান পরিচালনা করে এখন পর্যন্ত। ট্রিটমেন্ট তো 5 বছরের জন্য ব্র্যাক নিয়েছে, আমার 5 বছরে 2 বছর ওভার হয়ে গেছে, কিন্তু পরবর্তীতে আমাদের লাইফ যে কীভাবে চলবো, কেননা আমার যে মেরুদণ্ডের ভিতরে রড দেওয়া আছে।
The Rana Plaza collapse came just months after a deadly fire swept through another Bangladesh garment factory and killed more than 100 people. Few countries are as reliant on a single industry as Bangladesh is on its garment sector. It directly employs more than 4 million people and indirectly sustains more than 20 million, a $28 billion industry that accounts for more than 80% of Bangladesh's exports. The garment industry has helped Bangladesh halve the number of people living in poverty since 2000, with women benefiting the most.
এই কাজটা যখন আমি করতাম না তখন আমার বাসায় বিভিন্ন রকম প্রবলেম হতো, টাকা পয়সার সমস্যা, অনেক কিছু ফেস করতে পারতাম না, অনেক অভাব অনটন ছিল। এখন এটা করার পরে থেকে আমার বাসায় অনেক সমস্যার সমাধান হচ্ছে।
Rosina Akhtar says her garment factory job has boosted her self-confidence and independence.
ইন্টারমিডিয়েট পরীক্ষার জন্য আমি কিছু খরচ চালাচ্ছি, যে স্যালারি থেকে আমি আমার বাসা ভাড়া থেকে চালাচ্ছি, বাসা ভাড়া কিছু খরচ দিচ্ছি, এভাবে আমার ফ্যামিলিতে আমি হেল্প করছি। চাকরি স্যালারি দিই। মা বাবার মতামত আমি চাকরি করতে নিষেধ, মানে ওরা নিষেধ করতেছে, টোটালি বন্ধ করতে বলছে এটা চাকরি করার জন্য। কিন্তু আমার কাছে খুব ভালো লাগতেছে, আমি নিজে একটা ইনকাম করতেছি, আমার নিজের টাকা দিয়ে আমি পড়াশোনা চালাচ্ছি, সংসার চালাচ্ছি, খুব আনন্দ লাগছে আমার।
But the twin Rana Plaza and Tazreen disasters months apart plunged the industry into crisis, threatening millions of jobs and the country's economy. Global name brands that produce their clothes in Bangladesh faced a backlash from labor groups and consumers. The industry and the country had no choice but to clean up their act fast. European clothing brands and retailers stepped forward first, signing onto a legally binding agreement called the Accord for Fire and Building Safety. North American firms were more reluctant, signing a weaker, non-binding agreement called the Alliance. To date, more than 220 global apparel companies and retailers, as well as 2 global trade unions, have signed on to the tougher accord, paying up to $500,000 a year in fees to cover inspections and safety training.
The brands are required to have the factory owners that supply them fix all of the safety hazards identified through our inspections. And they've committed in cases where factories do not meet the requirements that there's a notice and warning period that culminates with ineligibility for that supplier to supply for any of the 220 Accord brands.
Inspections revealed a number of frequently recurring and disturbing problems, some of them easily rectified, others much less so. They included locked exit doors, an absence of fire doors, no sprinklers, smoke detectors or extinguishers, and many electrical flaws.
Improperly spliced wires, overload into the electrical circuit boxes, which are large fire hazards, circuit boxes that were made of flammable materials, wood, buildings that were designed to be 4 stories, that when we went and inspected them, they were 6, 7, 8 stories, and there was never any consideration from a structural perspective whether the building could hold that additional weight.
Fewer than half of the country's 4,500 garment factories are covered by the Accord. And even with those factories, safety improvements are far from complete.
The pace of remediation has been slow. We have a factory base of approximately 1,700, and we have approximately 40 that have completed all of the remediation from the initial inspections. We have close to 250 now, where they've completed 90% or more. Many of the factory owners have just delayed in doing the stuff. And as we've moved along and as time has passed, our tolerance for this is diminished dramatically.
The Accord's members have stopped buying from dozens of factories and companies that refuse to commit to the required improvements.
It's an impressive change that has taken place, undoubtedly. Very significant change. Small and medium factories that cannot remediate are closing down on their own, are relocating to better factories, which is, overall is a good thing that is happening.
But many factories terminated by the Accord have just found less picky buyers.
Those factories are in an unsafe condition and a death trap building. Those factories has been not shut down. Those are still in operation, many of them, and they're working. So I'm really worried about if those factories are not taken care by the government or, increasing their safety standards.
The government of Bangladesh has beefed up its inspections, boosting its staff and budget, working closely with the Accord and the International Labour Organization.
Actually, government is highly committed to ensure the safety of the workers at the workplace. We shall not allow anybody to die at the factory building. This is our bitter experience. We have lost many lives, valuable lives in the factory.
Fire safety, electrical safety and building safety, and we have done that. And we are doing that. Our members, everybody knows that if they want to do business with this buyer, if they want to be in this business, then they have to do this.
The Accord and the ILO say this is no time for self-congratulation or complacency.
In terms of the remediation itself, It is still an ongoing process. It is not finished, and therefore we need to continue to maintain the momentum.
Despite 2 government-mandated pay increases since the Rana Plaza incident, the minimum wage for garment workers is still only $68 a month.
It is a time for us to ask job with dignity. So we want the job, we want the jobs with dignity.
It may have been self-interest that drove Western companies to push for safer factories, but many believe it is creating a positive and lasting legacy.
Bangladesh is now able to market itself as probably the safest garment industry in any of the developing countries, because they're the only ones that have been subjected to a inspections regime of the type that we have, actually doing the remediation, having credible verification that the remediation has been done and been done correctly.
But for victims of the Rana Plaza collapse, those changes are coming too late. Ujjal Dash spent a year recovering in hospital, but his psychological wounds are still raw.
সেদিনের কথা প্রায় মনে পড়ে আর হঠাৎ হঠাৎ স্বপ্ন দেখা যায় মাঝে মধ্যে দেখলে অনেক চমকোটা লাগে আর কোনো বিল্ডিং এর নিচে গেলেই ভয় করে এটা আছে সব সময়
Despite all the improvements, people are still dying in Bangladesh's garment factories.
The average death toll up to Rana Plaza was 200 in every year, but the pretty good transformation is now we all together was able to make this or reduce these below 10.
The goal is to reduce the number of garment factory deaths to 0, so that no more memorials like this will have to be built to remember victims of preventable disasters. For Assignment Asia, I'm Rian Maelzer in Shava, Bangladesh.